Now, at the end, I will introduce University of Belgrade Faculty of Architecture, and teaching methodologies will be presented by Ana Nikezić, who is Nikezić Scientific Coordinator, Vice Dean for Science Education, and Associate Professor at our faculty. She holds PhD in Architecture and more than 20 years of teaching experience in the area of architecture and urban design, and over 14 years of experience in research projects. She's particularly interested in connecting theoretical and practical dimensions of designing and architecture in general, and particular academic attention has been brought to the subject of relations between architecture and nature, architecture and urban culture, as well as to the subject of socially responsible architectural education based on an interdisciplinary approach. She's also author of several books, and she has also been member of the organizing and science committee for a number of national and international conferences and workshops. Please, Anna, and then we will have 3 more presentations from our different departments.
So thank you, Jelena. And just please the presentation. Okay, hello everybody. One more time for this second day in the afternoon. I think that we are all a bit exhausted after the whole 2 days of this webinar, and I'm sure that it's been very interesting, but I will be really short in trying to present just the structure of the curricula at the University of Belgrade Faculty of Architecture, and then I will give my word to 3 different specific courses that will be presented by the authors of those courses, which are focused, which focuses on different aspects of this interesting topic of sustainability of built environment and heritage in architecture education. So. The Faculty of Architecture offers a comprehensive education, including a wide range of studies and related educational activities, which enable the sharing of knowledge and development of skills required for practicing architecture and urbanism within the interdisciplinary environment. The studies offer practice-based courses that aim to prepare students for future careers in architecture and urbanism. The students are taught by academics and professional practitioners and supported to develop the practical and specialist techniques in different areas of conceptual and professional skills required for future practice in chosen subjects. The faculty currently offers the following programs, as you can see on the slide. So, bachelor studies counting some 300 students, and then we have master studies in architecture, master studies in interior architecture, and master studies in internal urbanism. The core of the faculty is master studies at master level, our master studies in architecture that consists of a few modules. Module for architecture, for urbanism, then for architectural technologies and structural engineering. And so this master covers a number of 120 students, while other masters are counting some 30 to 40 students depending on the year. And we also have this integrated studies, a single cycle for 5 years, counting some 60 students, which is more into the professional architects and urban designers. So the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. A distinctive feature of the study program at the University of Belgrade Faculty of Architecture is based on integrated approach to education with equal emphasis on architecture, urbanism, and technologies, and also architectural engineering. We have 3 distinct departments. All 3 departments are there shown. So you have 3 colors. So you can see that they are intertwined in a bachelor at the bachelor level in a way in similar amount of credits, and then on the master level, depending on the module and on the master, you have one department that is more and in the prospect of the student, while other modules are just there to cover the area of interdisciplinary through elective courses and some experimental pedagogical approaches toward other fields that somehow ground and resource architecture and urbanism. The white fields are for the compulsory courses, which are the same for all the students. Study programs at the Faculty of Architecture allows students to come up with their own course selection, thus tailoring the education to their particular needs. All three departments offer a number of elective modules open to all students. The number of electives increases and diversifies over the course of study program. So when we accredited the whole program and all study programs, actually we thought that this selectivity would be a great offer for our students, but in the course of running all those courses and the study programs, we actually discovered that due to the lack of selectivity in prior education, specifically in higher education, our students were not prepared in a well manner to choose in a rightful way. So we've decided to move a little bit of activity away from the first and second year and to introduce it only at the end of the second and then the third, and of course master classes. So at the master level, it's more or less all elective. So especially the teaching curricula for students of sustainability of heritage, that is the thematic and challenging scope of the HERSIS project, are established within different study programs and levels of studies, which very often disables logical chronology of learning and an integral consideration of the phenomenology of heritage and its lineage to the sustainable approach. So therefore, it is evident that the need, and we can see that here because all those colored subjects and courses are there to support the knowledge in sustainability and heritage, but as you can see, it's not enough. So it is evident that you need to learn about heritage is there. Different frameworks are established, but unfortunately, they are scattered all over the curricula, lacking an amalgam that will unite all aspects. We needed a new agenda to establish a program that requires the development of extended programs of the teaching processes and learning that empowers students to develop their competencies and skills further, critical thinking and positioning sustainability of heritage in their own cultural media. So I will now present, and so you can see here, these dotted spaces are the places where our authors of the courses and our presenters will show their positions in the whole study program at the University of Belgrade Faculty of Architecture. So now, Jelena, I will leave you with the other authors.
So first author who will be presenting today is Professor Danijela Milovanović Rodić, and she will have a presentation, Educating Socially Responsible and Engaged Architects. Danijela, I hope that you can, yes, you are here. I will just shortly present. She's assistant professor at our university, and got a Master of Science degree here and her PhD. The focus of scientific research and professional activities of Professor Danijela is in the field of urban governance, planning and design, especially collaborative planning methodology, public participation and education of socially responsible and engaged urban planners and architects. And she has participated in a few international national science research projects, national and local development strategies, spatial and urban plans, urban planning, architectural competitions and exhibitions, and etc. So please, Danijela, will you present your course?
Thank you, Jelena. I have some kind of problems with camera, with video. Is it switching as I see it? Jelena, do you see me?
Can you share the screen?
Yes, but do you hear me?
With your presentation? Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you all for inviting me here, and thank you for this call and this opportunity to present the results of my teaching in the recent years. I will present you just to find. Do you see my screen?
No. Do you have her presentation? No. We can share presentation from here. Maybe
Yes.
it would be better. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So the title of this presentation is Educating Socially Responsible and Engaged Architects and or architecture for and with the other 90%. The subject is a specific teaching model for educating socially sensitive, responsible and engaged architects able to formulate, design, fundraise, and implement sustainable solutions for people living in their conditions in urban slums, poor or distant rural areas, refugee camps, or temporary accommodations. The main goal of professional activity within that model is to improve the quality of life of these people and communities that are usually outside of our professional focus and their empowerment to deal with the problems in the future. The main goal of the teaching model is to empower students of architecture with this new perspective, skills, and knowledge needed for a shift from a service provider to a community enhancer role. The term design architecture for the other 90% is derived from the term design for the other 90%, which means the search for design solutions that represent the answer to the basic needs of population, which is not the usual clients of professional designers. Under that title, curator Cynthia Smith has set up 2 thematic exhibitions at the National Design Museum in New York in order to demonstrate how design can be a dynamic force that transforms and in many cases saves life. Bell and Wakeford in their book say that there can be recognized emergent geography of architectural activism rich in its diversity of approaches. The ideology of this architectural movement is a part of a broader ideological framework of socially and environmentally responsible architecture that is based on the premises that many social and environmental problems can be solved by architecture, that the main purpose of the architecture is improving the quality of life of people and communities. Therefore, that the subject of architecture, beside the design of spatial arrangements, is the quality of life of communities in which are they placed, and that the impact of on the community is one of the most important criteria for assessing the quality of architecture. There are several trends and characteristics of the development context according to which we should redesign our curricula in order to empower future professionals to deal with them. The gap, some of them are, the gap between the poor and the rich is being bigger. The gap between what millions of people need and what the current system of housing provides continue to grow. Economic uncertainty, inequalities, and informal development, as well as the number of unemployed and socially excluded inhabitants, is rising. Villages are disappearing, getting old, and have been emptied. The number of migrant crises due to wars or climate disasters is increasing. Consequences of climate change and environmental degradation are on the rise. This growing movement among architects and their architectural practices has many different names, such as architecture for humanity, public interest architecture, emergency architecture, architecture as activism, but similar ideology. Architects can help the poor, marginalized, powerless, vulnerable people. The common meaning in the search for architectural solutions that address the most basic needs of the population not traditionally served by architects. The course whose teaching model I'm presenting today was developed in collaboration with my dear colleague, Associate Professor Dr. Milovanović in 2012 school year, and since 2015 I'm running it with the great help of my former student and today's very active and competent expert in the field of participation, public property and public interest protection, Božena Stojić. The course was designed with the aim to make students able to formulate, design, fundraise, and implement sustainable solutions for and with clients, in this case, civic initiatives and local communities. The key characteristic is the continuous testing and repairing of project design in accordance with expected problems of its implementation in the context of limited resources, as well as due to the lack of skilled labor and the low technology, equipment and materials that can be used for its construction. The key outcomes of this collaborative practice-oriented and real context teaching model can be expected at 3 levels, and they are to happen to everyone involved in this process, from teachers and students to the local population and involved consultants as well. On the first level, we expect improving performances for dealing with current situation. It means that we produce better solutions. On the second level, we expect improving ability to deal with future challenges in order to make participants able to replicate solution, meaning knowledge and skills acquired in the process to some new in the future or even improving it. On the second level, we expect changing the perception on the structure, meaning value system, and his own role and capacity within it. It means being able to create partnerships, starting new projects, taking more proactive role in his own or community goals achievement. The teaching model will be illustrated by 3 projects done for and with the local communities, Živković and Pakraštica on Stara Planina, Old Mountain, the municipality of Pirot. They are results of a joint efforts and collaborative work of students and teachers at the Faculty of Architecture in Belgrade, residents of the mentioned villages, and representatives of the civic initiatives of Branimo Reke Stare Planine, Let's Defend Rivers of Old Mountain. We formed initiative called Old as New, referring to Old Mountain name, and under it applied for funds and present via social networks achievements, but barriers also to the wider public. In 2018-19 school year, we renovated an unused and neglected community hall in the village of Dojkinci into community cultural center. In 2019-20 school year, we made a project for renovation of an abandoned and neglected old rural school, and also renovated unused old diary in the village of Pakraštica and into village center and museum. In this 2020-21 school year, we are in a process of designing a project for renovation of abandoned and neglected old dairy also, but in a village Dojkici, into the ORSP, Let's Defend the River of Stara Planina initiative, research and teaching center. In 2019, in Dojkinci, in the village of Dojkinci, so this is the presentation of this first project, we created a space where various activities of importance for life of people in the village can take place: meetings, celebrations, workshops, presentations, exhibitions, projections, etc. The realization of the project was supported in various ways by numerous individuals, private, civil, and public organizations. We designed solutions in a continuous collaboration with the locals. We raised funds. The total value of donations in money and material good is around 1 million dinars. Everyone involved in the process of designing and implementing the project volunteered, and the value of that work is not included in the stated amount. We are very proud that we succeeded to achieve our goal to provide a new place where Dojkincis, but also other villages, inhabitants, and their families can gather and celebrate. This is a picture from the opening of the hall, and those are people who participated in its realizations. And on the left side, you can see our wish. We wanted that this project will inspire in future other villages and other communities to take their initiatives. And it really happened. Next year, we received an invitation from the village of Pakleštica. It is a nearby village on Old Mountain, to renovate the old school together with the locals, and civic initiative mentions ORSP. This school was built in 1923. It is abandoned since 1986. It was built by its inhabitants, and this is one old letter which shows that in 1923 they agreed to gather funds and to build a school. Today it is a public property, and the city of Pirot has the right of ownership. We did the same as we did in the previous case. We followed the pattern. At the beginning of the teaching process, we organized few days study stay in the village and its surroundings, and be received by the city officials in a city hall. We find this formal recognition by the public authority very important for the success of the future actions, even if it was not the case at this time. We continued to work in different formats, supported by experts and guest lecturers from different fields of expertise, using different types of platforms for collaboration between us and within. We presented proposal to the city officials in a municipality hall, but also in a village, to village inhabitants. We started preparatory activities for cleaning school building and its yard. We took action to stop the further deterioration of the building by temporarily closing the windows with nylon and repairing the roof. In the process, we combined local and professional knowledge, skill, and techniques, values, and ideas. And we produced a very multi-layered and complex product, which beside these architectural projects had an urban design project, but also center management model, and the concept of media campaign and the project realization concept. But after 3 formal requests from the village, where the idea is presented to the city and asked for consent for the implementation of the project, after 6 months, the city administration gives a negative answer. one of the stated reasons is their understanding that the village does not have authority to engage in this type of activity. As in previous case, we have already get some different type of resources from different sources. Besides these financial resources, we also had this legal and organizational support and specific knowledge expertise. So we had to redirect energy and resources on another project in the same village, and we organized ourselves to reconstruct old diary in a village Pakraštica. And with the help of local communities, ORSP members, our students helped to reconstruct old diary into village center and museum, which is very successful. These are some pictures from the opening, and in this place, this building, we have the villagers organized many different manifestations, and this village center lives very successfully. This is this year's project, and it is still going on in the village Dojkinci. Our partners from previous projects, initiative for defending rivers on Old Mountain, gave us initiative to renovate abandoned and deteriorated old diary in village Dojkinci into this research center. Their idea that we support and embrace as ourselves is to create a teaching and research center necessary for continuation of their activities on nature protection. The main aim is creating environmentally responsible, energy efficient, in line with the spirit of the place, but also with legal regulations, safe and comfortable space for work and stay of groups of people, a place that will be a nursery of future guardians of nature. Stara planina. I'm not sure.
Danijela, thank you.
Okay. Did I fit in the time?
There are no further questions, so I would like now to present our another presentation from our faculty. This is Professor Ivan Rašković, and he will present the topic of use of heritage in architecture. Professor Ivan Rašković is full professor at the Faculty of Architecture in Belgrade. He's the head of one of the design master studios and the graduate courses of the Department of Architecture. He deals with practice and theoretical work, and for him, architecture is primarily a consequence of social phenomena, processes, and the value system of certain epochs. With Professor Borislav Petrović, he published monographic study, Tradition Transition, as well as monograph Future of Housing, and his creative opus includes over 20 buildings of various purposes involving residential, business, industrial, sports, and religious content. The team which he belongs to has won more than 30 architectural competitions, on which 15 of first prizes, and he is a bearer of 9 professional recognitions. He was Serbian National Commissioner of the 14th Venice Biennale of Architecture, and he currently performs in the post of city architect of Banja Luka and in Republika Srpska.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. This is sort of this is candid camera. This is joke, sort of a game. Okay. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. I'm happy to present with my associate assistant Miloš Kostić our elective program Use of Heritage in Architecture. I think that we have been recognized for upgrading this subject with some interesting issues, and Miloš will give the advanced information about that upgradation of ours.
As the elective subject, the use of heritage in contemporary architecture, has been dealing with the topic architect film epoch in the recent 3 years. It is offered in the 2nd year of master studies and the 5th year of integrated studies or single cycle studies. And it is comprised of 3 group of separate researchers that deal with the same topic regarding 4 films that were selected as case studies. Next slide. General subject goals were directed towards understanding of tradition as a concept through the realization of its temporal and spatial dimension. The focus of student works were directed towards critical analysis of the formative aspects of spatial practices as a consequence of specific cultural and social phenomena and mapping the scope of their influence. The 3rd goal was outlining communicational aspects of architecture through different contexts with spatial emphasis of overcoming the prejudice and stereotypes related to the question of heritage. And the 4th goal was developing the necessary skills for critical thinking and re-examination of conceptual frames and interconnections of various phenomena related to modernity, historicity, contemporaneity, heritage, originality, readability, authorship, etc. Next slide. The general content of the course was directed towards the processing of key terms in the observed area of research, where we tried to implement different theoretical standpoints, interpretations, and critique. That was the first phase in which we decided to focus on theoretical problems, while while the relativization of certain theoretical assumptions generated within populist discourses, such as stereotypes and prejudices, which are directed towards the understanding of the role of heritage in the contemporary practice. And the focus of research was, of course, mainly on questioning the place of interdisciplinarity of research through overview of relevant concepts and ideas from the discourse of culturology, sociology, and anthropology. And as already mentioned, in the recent 3 years, we chose to examine this topic based on 4 case studies that were films in Yugoslav cinematography, and Professor Rašković will tell you more about the criteria which were used for the selection of these 4 films.
Well, the film or movie, as we say, as a brilliant carrier of meaning, special carrier of various stereotypes, narratives, and even prejudice. So we have chosen 4 films from Yugoslav, actually heritage, Yugoslav cinematography. The main criteria was actually epoch. 4 epochs are marked by these films. The first one is from early 60s, the second one mid-70s, the third one late 80s, and the 4th one early 2000s, sorry. So they mark the time of happy, cheerful socialism, then self-management problems, and the last 2 ones actually are dealing with something that we could call a black transition. All 4 films, as the main characters, main heroes, have actually architects. So we could define or see or make transparent the popular view of popular meaning or of profile of such a profession and its social meaning. And it was very useful. Students like that, and they made actually excellent elaborations of these epochs. And especially the actually parallel analysis was very, very useful. Even some surprising conclusions we have made.
Yes, as Professor Rašković has already mentioned, the 4 depictions of architects are analyzed, and the special focus was directed towards understanding the role, for example, of women as an architect, depicted in the role of Katarina Ilić, played by
Yugoslav famous
Jelena Živković, yes.
At that time.
Jelena Đorđević, yes. And these four roles were then mapped in the context of the plot of those films. Next slide. By applying the methodology, the study methodology that was consisted of defining conceptual framework, narrational framework, and spatial framework, where we applied the different teaching media. We decided to go outside the faculty as an institution and organize the lectures and discussions with the directors of those four films in the alternative artistic space named Catch 22, where we had a chance to discuss these topics with guests, students, local artists, and everyone who was interested in this particular topic. And in this place, we also organized these interviews with the directors, discussions and presentations of the tasks that students did during the course. Then, according to these three frameworks, the different approaches were applied, where the students showed the understanding of the complexity of the socio-cultural context, ideological and historical background of the plots, and the specific profiles of the architects. Analyze the narrational techniques of the directing plot, character portrayal, human interactions, behavior, and hierarchies, and applied representational techniques of architecture in the process of mapping the observed phenomena on their spatial interpretation. And as a result, the discursive images were generated, which were a sort of systematizations and the representation of transforming role of the architect in the different social contexts, as mentioned before, and in different epochs. And here we applied three research media as a textual form, it was an essay; as a notational form, it was a diagram; and as a spatial form, we decided to apply set design by applying digital and virtual techniques that architects use in their design projects. Next slide. And the course ran through three steps. And the first step was, of course, the discussion and analysis of the content of architecture and film, where the students had a chance to form their critical overview and standpoints based on the four interviews that were conducted during the course with each director. Based on these interviews, they built their conceptual framework. Next slide. The conceptual framework was then defined on theoretical level based on different standpoints and critical remarks that they had a chance to pose to those interviews. And afterwards, they formed an input for this next step, which is next slide, theoretical practical task. It was directed to a spatial diagram of the film as an outcome that will be as an instrument that will be used for questioning the build, the projected, the relation between narrative and perceptual, the relation between spontaneous and constructed meaning in the space of film. Next slide. And here we can see that students use the different graphic techniques in order to map these different meanings and to simplify them and explain them through the spatial context and tools that were already known to them and at this point of studies. Next slide. And as the third and the last slide the last step during the course, critical analysis through a physical 3D model was a focus where the students were appointed to work on the different played film, where they had a task to define a 3D set design inspired by those critical standpoints that they defined in the previous phases. And this was a task for outlining the spatial and the most architectural framework of the course.
These were actually not actual sets of the films.
Yes, there were
impressions that film is giving about space.
These were the critical re-examination of the film sets, and as such, they present an interpretative studies of those spatial aspects. Next slide. And as they use different media, they use the 3D modeling and virtual techniques, which proved to be very useful during the COVID time in the previous years, as these were applicable. This methodology was applicable during the digital learning and in the digital environment, as they could also focus on developing the virtual skills and virtual sets that also had that were soaked with narrational meaning. Next slide. And they choose to define the different set designs, which differed in the scale and in the scope, questioning at the same time in the theoretical level the positions and the hypotheses that they set at the very beginning of the research. And the next slide. And the next slide represents the synthesis. This was the very end of the course, where they had to choose the most representative elements and try to connect them in one coherent whole. Next slide. Using the different graphic techniques and collages as a method to connect this theoretical and practical work as a form of a 3D essay. And just instead of conclusion, next slide, just a short 20-second film from the movie Živi bili pa vidjeli, Long Live and See.
Or let's see, I will put it that way. Let's see what will happen in the future. It's a film of Milovanović, Yugoslavian Croat director. Film made in the mid-70s, and actually socialism opened its systematic crisis. So it's a brilliant elaboration of that crisis.
And that's it. Thank you for your attention. You can contact us if you're interested or you have more questions.
Emails. Yes.
Thanks, you.
Miloš.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We will have the last presentation for today. This is Professor Dushan Ignatovic. He's the associate professor at the Faculty of Architecture in Belgrade, also visiting professor at the Faculty of Technical Sciences in Kosovska Mitrovica, and formerly at Faculty of Architecture in Podgorica. His professional and scientific interests are related to design, energy efficiency, green building design, and refurbishment. As an expert as a researcher, he has been involved in numerous international, national, scientific, and professional projects and activities. Currently, he's involved in City of Belgrade typology of residential buildings as a team leader, and national typology of buildings in Montenegro as international consultant. He also participated in many international projects by Horizon projects, Erasmus Plus clubs, projects, etc. And his expertise in building typology and energy efficiency has enabled him active participation as invited speaker in numerous national and international professional trainings, workshops, and symposiums. And besides, he published many publications, and he's also designed numerous buildings covering great variety of programs in various cultural and climatic conditions. So please, this last presentation will be focused on energy efficiency.
Yeah. Thank you, Jelena. Dear colleagues, I hope that you survived actually this couple of days. And since I'm the last one, I was told to speak between the 8 and 10 minutes. So I have 8 minutes till the end, and I hope I will be finished by that time. As you can see, the position of the subject which I'm supposed to present is the specialized studies, and these specialist academic studies are actually the graduate course after the academic studies of architecture. So they are kind of in between of the professional expertise and academic expertise, aiming at providing the direct tools applicable in everyday practice in the field of energy primarily, and at the same time broadening the knowledge and academic topics about the sustainability and green architecture as a topic. So why do we do this? What was actually the starting point in the idea for let's say starting this course? First is the general shift towards the energy efficiency and green architecture. On one side, being pursued both internally from the Republic of Serbia and externally pushed by the European Union. On the other hand, we are facing the decrease in population, where we lost almost 1 million people in the past 30 years. Our families are narrowing, the number of inhabitants are narrowing. At the same time, we are having more and more flats constructed every year. So on this slide, you can see that actually the number is decreasing of the people and the number of the dwellings has been increasing. So now we're having the standards, which at the time when I was a student were just imaginative for us, that one person occupies more than 30 square meters of space. But what kind of space? What does our built heritage look like? And we are focusing, or at least my study is mainly focusing on the residential sector. We are tackling only the residential from various types and various, let's say, appearances from the history. So what do we investigate? First, the technical aspect. We investigate what our buildings are constructed of, when are they constructed of, what are the materials, what is the performance. Aside from this studio, there are numerous other subjects which are dealing with the specific technical knowledge needed for assessment of the performance of the buildings. One of these is this implementation of infrared inspection in the building performance. On the left, you can see the structure of our building fund, where actually more than a half is constructed before the 1980, and that was the period with very low energy efficiency standards, meaning that half of our built heritage is not, let's say, according to any contemporary standard. And we all have the built very good quality materials, and we think for 60 and plus years, meaning that we have to deal with them. Since it's the less and less of us, and the buildings are more and more, that's the only resource which we have. So that's the only resource which keeps on growing. And it presents a significant material and, let's say, a resource which can be used and which can be worked upon. So this is the legacy that we are leaving for our future generations, which is 0.8 kids per family. And we have to adapt it for the us, which are aging, which are becoming more older, and which are being less available and to use the contemporary and new models. So we have to adapt our building funds to the aging population. We have to adapt to the structural, material, and cultural, as well as technological changes that are appearing every single day. And we have to adapt to the new regulatory changes being pushed top down from Europe and bottom up from internally from our own legislation. So we have to deal with the maintenance, rehabilitation, improvement, as well as the protection of our built heritage. So what do? We can leave it by itself. You can see on the left how the people are doing it by itself. They do what they do, and the outcomes are as they are. Or we can do it like our neighbors. We can try to fix it. And fix it usually means that we improve the state or improve the energy efficiency. And the energy efficiency is the main motto of all these works. But this is not architecture. This is just posting the insulation and painting. So the buildings are the same. They are still ill-performing. They are still substandard from the point of the spatial and functional efficiency. So in our course, we try to move a little bit forward. We try to use the energy rehabilitation, the stimulus towards the new approach in building treatment. Actually the dynamic management and the architectural and urbanistic interventions are potential. So the reconstruction is actually the new design. Because we design only 1% of new buildings a year, meaning that we have to deal with the old ones. So our profession will have to turn itself towards the reconstruction as a main challenge, both from the performance point of view, but also from the design point of view. So rehabilitation is actually the new discourse in our practice. And in order to boost this discourse, we actually started the, let's say, demonstration works on various building types usually choosing the ones which are most common in our building fund, trying to put our students to analyze these areas, these building types, the people that are living in the social, the cultural, and the functional needs which they are facing within this building. So this is one example, for example, from the last year's studio project. Okay, we can have next one. First, we analyze the big picture. We organize the urban picture, so-called bioclimatic principles, location, urban milieu, climatic, and other influences that actually can be and used and fostered towards the way to make the new and better buildings. So we kind of analyze various surrounding appearances and influences like sun, wind, a little bit of mechanical fluids and stuff like that, just to give the glimpse to the architects what can be modeled and what can be included when we go top down to the building level. So once we arrive at the building, we analyze what we have, what are the material elements of these buildings, how they're constructed, what are the actually layouts, what are the advantages, disadvantages, and we do this calculation of energy performance. Then we try what is being requested by the law. If I add thermal insulation, if I add some new windows, if I change this, if I change that, but it's not architecture. This is just a technical principle which can be applied by any technical person as being requested by a chamber of engineers. And we can see what are the levels that we can improve our buildings in this way. But we kind of try to push it a little bit forward to follow up on a project which we did 15 years ago, which actually tackled the building as a resources and which tackled the principles of redesigning the building in the 21st century. And on this way, we analyze the structure itself. And we analyze building as a potential on which we can work on in all the axes, horizontally, vertically, internally, externally, both from the materialization point of view, but also from the design point of view. So this is one illustration where our students analyze the layout and potential of the building, also aiming at the generating the economic, let's say, boundaries which can enable reconstruction. So what we can gain from this reconstruction in order to foster the reconstruction itself. So and then we go deeper into the technical aspects of this, all the detailing and calculation of the materials costs and actually the gains. So we can see that, for example, this example can reach up to the level B, which is higher than requested by our laws for the new buildings. And these buildings can look a little bit different than the ones on the first slide. And just a couple of slides more, there's another example of another student where we can also see the same procedure, but with the different outcomes. So the idea of this course is on one side technical, to go through all the calculation and all the technical knowledge and data needed for sufficiently reconstruct and rehabilitate the project. But on the other side, since it's been positioned in the Faculty of Architecture, it is the design, philosophy, and idea making of how to treat the building fund actually in correlation with the ever-changing needs of society which we are facing. And that was it. 8 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being so focused. Now, I don't see that we have any questions, and I think we are running out of time. I will just finalize this session. We were able, oh, there is. Okay. We had the great opportunity to see a variety of approaches and teaching methodologies that relate to history, landscape, communities, practices, technologies, and I think that all that we hear will really be very useful for our next steps on Cursus project, that we will all benefit, not only our schools, our students, but our professions from this, but also ourselves. And I will finalize this session with quoting Anna Tostes that presented today. We have great lectures this morning, and she said, without people, there is no heritage. So this will open our, I hope, kickoff meeting just after a short break. But I think that Anna Nikezić had wanted something to add to all of this. So before we have a short break and then start kickoff meeting,
Thank you, Anna. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for the patience. The official part of the webinar is over. And now I will ask for consortium members to use the link that you have received for the kickoff meeting and that you already have for today. So we can transfer to the other meeting to have an internal meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope this was a good experience and some prospects for future ways in which we are going to develop this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.